Hey everybody, thanks for joining me. So I had a chance yesterday, I guess early afternoon probably, to finish up the league that I started with this blue-white Merfolk list from Wednesday night stream. It was Wednesday night Merfolk. My first round just took forever against Jund, and then I had two really fun matches against Blue-Red Prowess. Ended the stream at 3-0. And so I did have a chance to finish the league yesterday, and the matches were pretty fun. So I thought that I would just go ahead and show replays of the final two matches. I thought what could be really nice would be if, I would go through the replays, and then any sort of interesting moment where there's a decision to be made, I could just ask you guys what you think the line should be. Should we take Ether Vial up? Should we put Luris into hand? Should we play this? Should we play that? Should we bounce this? Should we whatever? Holding Force up. I think there's this general impression that Merfolk is kind of a straightforward, easy deck where you just play creatures and attack with Island Walk, but any of you who play Merfolk actually know that it's a good deal more complicated than that. The sort of fragility, sort of the delicate nature of Island Walk means that we sort of have to weigh very carefully whether to go all in at any particular moment or to sort of hedge our bets, try to get in with some of the less important creatures. So if the Lord gets killed, maybe we don't actually lose a Mariner or a Lord to an attack that had Island Walk but now doesn't. Hey, Lonely Isotope, thanks for joining me. Well, I had mentioned at the end of Wednesday's Merfolk stream that I may show you guys the end of the league, and so I did get to finish it. And the final two rounds of the league that was begun on Wednesday evening were really exciting, and so I kind of want to show you guys the replays, plural. And actually, if you don't want to see the results, if you don't know the results already, you might have already seen it, but if you don't know the results, you might want to look away for a second. I'm gonna open up the first round right now. Still waiting, and all right, and we're there. So this was the fourth round. And remember, it is a replay, it's not live, so I'm just going to be pretty chilled out during this stream. And really, I'm just going to look to you guys to let me know your thoughts about what I should do. So we're going to go ahead and reveal Luris and check out the opening hand. All right, so off the bat, looks pretty reasonable. Again, feel free to just spam comments about whether you would keep and what the line is going to be. I mean, for me, this is a pretty straightforward keep. Maybe there's not much to it. 3 lands, 4 spells, very nice. Kind of hoping that there's some kind of creature involved so that Dismember would be live. Benthic Biomancer, great play on turn 1. If we're playing against Jund and we're on the play, we can adapt this guy, and if they play Ren in 6, then we still get value with the adapt, and then Ben is not so easy to kill with 2 toughness. So very nice opening hand. Again, Trickster is quite good against creature decks, so opponent kept 7 as well. All right, so turn 1, Wanderwine Hub, reveal Benthic Biomancer, just get Ben on the board. All right, so what are we playing against here? Mishra's Bauble, so pretty much a dead giveaway that it's a Death Shadow deck. Some Jund lists run Bauble with like maybe Luris in the main deck. Street Wraith, Bloodstained Mire, more and more hints as to what we're playing against. 15 life, Thoughtseize to go down to 13 life, and they take the Dismember, so they almost certainly have the threat in hand. Good first turn for Death Shadow. Amazing that they can get down to 13 life on turn 1 so consistently. All right, drawing back up to 6. That 4th land, not really what I was hoping to rip off the top. For me, just pushing damage here seems the clear line. Their creatures don't have haste. Let's get a Lord on the table and swing. If it is Jund, then Ren and 6 again can't kill either of our guys at this point, but it doesn't look like Jund here. Death Shadow. It looks like Grixis, right? So I attacked, actually making their Death Shadow not die when it hits the board. Although they do have three more points of damage to deal to themselves, but currently Death Shadow is a 2/2. All right, so Mariner, quite good in the matchup. They don't tend to play a lot of lands, so Mariner taxing any removal or something that I think a lot of pilots that I play against don't realize is that Mariner actually taxes things like Thoughtseize that target you, because Mariner does tax things that target you as well as not just your creatures but your permanents. So even if you have like a Relic of Progenitus. So I believe, for example, if an opponent cast like a Kolaghan's Command targeting like an Ether Vial and a creature, I believe they would have to actually pay 2 for that spell to resolve, because it says whenever you or a permanent you control becomes the target. So 2 of your permanents would be targeted, but I haven't actually come up against that situation. So who knows how it actually would go, but I'm pretty sure that is how it would go. So I guess I can pause here. And if any of you guys have any thoughts about, what the best line at this point is. Attack, no attack, Trickster, or Mariner, what are we looking to do here? Are we going to adapt with Ben, potentially try to get rid of this this 4th land that we have in hand? Maybe we just put Luris in hand. There's actually a surprising amount of possible decisions here. The opponent has a Death Shadow on the table, 5 cards in hand, quite a lot. They've got a fetch land representing a shock land. So Death Shadow could go up to be a 5/5 pretty quickly. So, I don't know. No thoughts? So for me, I just went to combat and just passed through. It didn't seem like a great opportunity. I think that just holding up Trickster seems fine. Sort of representing weakness, make the opponent sort of hit their life total pretty hard, potentially just leaving up Trickster to tap down the Death Shadow. Of course, we have Adapt up, but most likely just going to tap the Death Shadow during beginning of combat. So pushing the Lord. The thing is, if you try to play Mariner, they still just push the Lord. So attacking is a little bit sketchy, because if we if I were to attack with just Ben, for example, and the push comes, I could play out the Trickster to tap down the Death Shadow. I'm still only getting in 1 point of damage though, and at this point, Death Shadow would just grow with that 1 extra point of damage. So it sort of explains why the attack wasn't the best call. It would force me to use Trickster on my own offensive sort of situation, when really in this matchup we kind of want Trickster to be sort of a pseudo time walk, taking away their gigantic attacks and making their life total actually more of a liability, when the turn gets passed back to us with a bunch of creatures on the board. All right, so Lord down, Death Shadow as a 5/5. Okay, so Inquisition is going to kind of force our hand here. We definitely want to get Trickster out onto the board. So we'll cast that now, tap the Death Shadow, and see if the opponent has a land drop to make. Looks like they might have an Angler, actually. Okay, and they do, and they have the land drop. And they choose to play it tapped. Okay, so for the time being, Death Shadow going to stay a 5/5. They have another 5/5 on the board. Drawing a land there, actually pretty terrible. So, any thoughts about the hand and the play? Again, for any of you guys just joining me, I'm showing replays of the last 2 rounds of the league that I began on Wednesday's stream. with blue-white Merfolk, playing Lurrus as a companion. This is the first game of the first round. Sorry, of the fourth round. The first game of the fourth round. I was 3-0 in the league at this point. Opponent has a Death Shadow on the board, just played an Angler, and they Fatal Pushed Master of the Pearl Trident and removed Dismember and Unsettled Mariner with Hand Disruption. So, sequencing, any thoughts? Get Lurrus or use Biomancer. Well, those are the options, right? Drawing the Cavern actually presents us with the option of naming something like Nightmare or Cat, right? Because this thing is a cat nightmare. I always name Nightmare just because it's more badass, I think. Death Shadow doesn't play anything, at least not in the main deck, that can counter our creatures. So playing Cavern without naming Merfolk, it doesn't really have a drawback against Death Shadow. They can bring in Mystical Dispute post board, which should make us a little bit more hesitant to name anything other than Merfolk with Cavern of Souls, unless it's super important to get Lurrus onto the table, in which case maybe you might want to name Nightmare. So anyhow, I'm gonna go ahead and play the Cavern, naming Nightmare, and then since I can't cast Lurrus this turn, for me, I have this extra land in hand. I can adapt, potentially draw another Trickster, or even just like a Harbinger to bounce this guy right now. So let's go ahead and adapt using that Nightmare land. Again, since the mana can't really do very much right now. Silvergill, always going to be awkward in some spots, just like Wanderwine Hub, but obviously better than the island that we had. Unfortunately, no attacks to be had here, so just pass back to the opponent. They're going to start with a Thought Scour, hitting a Stubborn Denial and a Scalding Tarn, cycle a Street Wraith, play a Swamp, go to attacks. After cycling the Street Wraith, the Death Shadow is now a 7/7. Attacking with both creatures is a sign of strength. It means they almost certainly have some kind of removal in hand if I draw a Lord off the top. Or I could even have a Lord in hand. Well, then I probably would have played it. Opponent potentially sensing weakness on my side of the board. If I block here, there's really no chance for me to win, I think. So I think I'm kind of priced into taking 12 damage, and the opponent is ahead in this spot. All right, so Dismember, a little bit awkward because, well, more than a little bit, because we were really hoping to hit a Merfolk there, so we could cast our Silvergill Adept and, again, potentially draw something meaningful. Lurrus is just going to be a little bit too slow here, because we can get him in hand, but we can't cast him. But at the same time, we can't cast the Silvergill Adept, so, you know, potentially casting Dismember, getting Lurrus in hand seems like the only thing that we can really do here. So when do we do things? What do we do? For me, if we're going to cast a Dismember, we do it now to reduce the chances that they draw into a counterspell. So go ahead and do that. Actually, I'm going to put Lurrus in hand first. Sequencing doesn't really matter too much, but do you guys attack here? And if so, which do you attack with? Or not at all? Yeah, no attacks. No attacks. As I said, getting in with two creatures was a sign of strength. I'm pretty sure they have some kind of removal in hand, because they would not want to just lose to a top deck Lord. And you can also read into the opponent's body language, even though it's online. If they go to attacks and pretty confidently get in, take it. You can typically take that for what it's worth. Good players will know what their actions are representing. So there was a match against Prowess on Wednesday's stream this week where they had Stormwing, I think it's called Stormwing Entity, as a 3/3. I had two 2/2s on my side of the board with Aether Vial on 2. And I only thought for like a second, went straight to attacks, got in with both creatures. I had no Lord in hand, but the opponent was tapped out, and without like a Mutagenic Growth in hand, which I think they may have already played one in that game, so pretty unlikely that they had a second one in hand. I don't think. Well, anyhow, I attacked with the 2/2/2s, and they could have very easily just eaten one of my creatures, but they didn't want to risk losing their powerful flyer. It wasn't worth it to them, so they just took 4 damage. So by representing that I was confident in my attack, I forced the opponent to assume that I had what I needed to have to make that attack. So again, you have to think about what you are projecting through your actions and what your opponent is projecting. And there's different levels. Like if your opponent has made a bad play or two at some point in the match, you can more readily assume that you can take their actions at face value. But if they've played really tight and they're obviously pretty talented and they know their deck really well, then you might need to expect more tricks. So okay, so the opponent, they had blue mana up, but on end step, they're going for Snapcaster here, and it's pretty rough. It's just adding another attacker to the board, but I might as well just use this Dismember now. It deals 4 damage to me. It gets rid of a 5/5. The opponent's blue mana is just tapped out. Snapcaster does get to kill one of my creatures with a Fatal Push. And now I'm sort of priced into chump blocking. I'm going to take 2 from Snapcaster, and there's very little here that can... Now, hang on a sec. I kind of rushed through that Fatal Push situation. Did you guys have any observations about how that went down? And whether you would have changed something, whether how I did what I did with my Dismember, or whether the opponent Snapcaster and how they tapped their lands, or what they did with the Fatal Push. Did you guys sort of see anything that might have set off an alarm in your head? You can think about that while I fill up my water here. If you guys get really tired of me just asking all these questions, just tell me to stop doing it, and I'll just do the commentary and just get through it. But I think it's like, for me, it's way more interesting if you guys get to think about these situations. So, any observations about how that went down? The sequencing. Opponent cast Snapcaster. I dismembered the Gurmag Angler, and then they chose Fatal Push out of their graveyard, and they Fatal Pushed the Benthic Biomancer. So, anything interesting? Not interesting at all? Just what you would do? All right. So, Lonely Isotope was eating a sandwich. Okay, so for me, it seemed like a misplay. And the opponent is so far ahead that it's not a big deal. Like, I make misplays more often, I think, when I'm way ahead because you put your guard down a little bit. But they killed my 1-drop, right? And I've only got 4 lands, so they know I have Lurrus in hand, and they know that I can cast it. So why would you kill the creature that I can definitely cast again at this point? Just doesn't seem correct. I can't use Merfolk Trickster on the opponent's turn because Lurrus only lets you cast things on your turn. So I'm just going to be putting up blockers, basically, and I'm sort of forced to chump here. So it seemed loose that the opponent killed my 1-drop. That's what I was sort of looking for when I was asking that question. So again, opponent just sort of going straight to their attack. And remember that when they attacked previously with Angler and Death Shadow, I had said that they were clearly attacking, or it seemed to be clear that they were attacking from a position of strength, which is to say they had removal in hand. As it turned out, what they had in hand was Snapcaster getting back push. So I have to block the Death Shadow here. So land would be probably the best, just so that I could cast something a little bit more meaningful from the graveyard. So if I draw land, play Lurrus, potentially cast Unsettled Mariner, but to do that I would need to draw another Wanderwine Hub to get white mana, or the second Cavern of Souls to be able to actually get the white mana for Unsettled Mariner. But playing Lurrus and anything from the graveyard, one thing is going to chump, and the other is going to trade with a Snapcaster, so really the situation was just fairly dire, because the opponent has this extra Snapcaster on the board, and it just makes it that much harder for me to actually try to in any way pull ahead on the board. So I did not draw a land here. So we are very much priced into playing Lurrus plus the Ben that the opponent accidentally fatal pushed. Again, they should have fatal pushed the Trickster, which would have left me with nothing to be able to recast out of the graveyard, and then I would just be dead on board. It's the opponent's poor choice with fatal push that allows me to actually continue the game here. So, I mean, at this point, we're not totally dead. Imagine that the opponent has just total air and in their hand and on top of the deck. I can draw a Merfolk next turn. Hopefully something like well, particularly a Trickster would probably be the best. I can play a Silvergill Adept, cast a Trickster, tap down the Death Shadow, hopefully draw something good off of the Silvergill as well. But for now, it's just like a chump and a trade sort of situation. Opponent immediately sort of jumping into attacks. The way I line this up doesn't matter at all. So Lurrus on the Shadow, Ben on the Snapcaster Mage. If the opponent has the Battle Rage, it's obviously just game over, but it looks like they don't. They play a land, and I'm at 5 life, so Lurrus doing something, gaining me a little bit of life. Second Spreading Seas was kind of a nail in the coffin there. I can still play it and draw Merfolk, so it's not totally game over, but we really needed to draw Merfolk in that spot. Carefully tapping the Nightmare land, since it's not for Merfolk. Okay, so opponent's Stubborn Denialed, and that was the final nail in the coffin because they've got a 4-power creature. It's just a hard counter, which means I'm not going to get the redraw I need to be able to cast Silvergill. And so I'm just going to try to cast the second Seas, but it's tapping me out. So it's game over. Opponent thinks about countering it, realizes the situation, I guess, lets it resolve, and I finally got that Merfolk that I needed. If the opponent didn't have the Stubborn Denial, I would have gotten to draw Ben. I could have cast the Silvergill Adept, and the opponent didn't have removal on their attack. If they had it, they probably would have just used it and won the game last turn. So there would have been a chance that I could have still potentially climbed back into this one. But the Stubborn Denial sort of kept me out of it. So anyhow, close game one. It often comes down to top decks. So again, if you guys don't want to see the result of the match, I would just recommend that you look away for a moment. I'm going to close this window and go into the second game. All right. So back for game 2, I'll give you guys sort of a look at my sideboarding decisions. So it looks like I took out all the Spreading Seas, all the Force of Negations, and 3 Benthic Biomancers. It's a lot of cards, but we have a lot of good stuff to bring in against Grixis Death Shadow. So between 4 Forces, 4 Spreading Seas, 3 Bends, that's 11 cards coming out. I would have brought in certainly the 2 Relics, 3 Chalices. That's 5 cards, leaving 6 others. Trying to remember exactly what... I brought in 2 Monoleaks, so that takes us up to 7. What else? What else? I guess I can just check the list. I should know offhand, but... 2 Echoing Truths, definitely very good. So again, 2 Relics, 3 Chalices. Oh, it's only 10 cards because I took out 3 Spreading Seas. There's only 3 in the main deck. So that means... actually, and there's only 3 Forces as well in the main deck. So it's 3 Forces out, 3 Seas out, 3 Bends out. So it's 9 cards in. 2 Relics, 3 Chalices, 2 Monoleaks, and 2 Echoing Truths. With Merfolk on such kind of an upswing these days, we're sort of spoiled with choices for like which deck list to play. In the past, when I was pretty much only playing Merfolk before I started playing Soul Herder, I would just play the decks that I built. I would make observations about what was working, what was not working, and just sort of tweak it and keep rolling with it. But these days, if one particular list is putting up lots and lots of results, I'm very interested in playing that list to, first of all, see how the deck feels, if it's actually as good as it seems like it should be. But then also, I like winning too. So this is a list that has probably been winning the most lately. So that's why I'm playing it, and it's why I don't instinctively know exactly the quantities in the main deck and the sideboard. So I do get to be on the play again, and let's have a look at the opening hand. Beautiful hand. 2 lands, Ether Vial, Relic, and 3 great creatures. So very strong hand. Definitely a keep. Opponent kept 7 as well. I think Death Shadow very rarely mulligans. 2 Seachrome Coast, play one of them, and Ether Vial, pass the turn. Okay, start off with 2 Street Wraiths and an untapped Blood Crypt into Thoughtseize, getting down below 13 life on turn 1. Very impressive. They chose to take the Unsettled Mariner, which means they might have more hand disruption, they might have more removal. And that is, I believe, the third of 3 Seachrome Coasts in the deck. Kind of cool, because potentially giving us access to be able to get and cast Lurrus pretty quickly. So do you guys go Lord here? Do you play Relic? What's your call? I'll just wait a second, see if you guys have any thoughts. Why Relic? I think I obviously agreed with Relic, but what's the thought process? Isn't it better to get creatures on the board and establish some kind of clock? Yeah, those are the considerations, I think, right? Like one of the ways they generate value is with the graveyard, and Relic is a way to sort of get on top of that early. If they play a fetch into a Thought Scour, I believe that gives them a turn 2 Angler. And so, yeah, because there'd be 6 cards in the graveyard, and then they just tap their black and exile the other 6 cards. So this just even just chipping away 1 card out of the graveyard is most likely making it impossible for them to get an Angler on the board on turn 2. All right, Scalding Tarn with no follow-up. We love to see it. I am not going to crack Relic here. I did think about it to be super mana efficient, but I think it's just better to keep checking Snapcaster. And we do have a 3rd land that we'll be able to leave up for Relic. Alternatively, of course, we could just choose to put Lurrus into hand this turn, rather than leaving Relic up. That's obviously a consideration. Okay, we drew a 4th land. Not exactly what we were hoping for. Remember, we did board out all 3 bends, so any of the cards that we have in hand we're going to be stuck with for the entire game. There's not going to be any looting happening here. So do you guys like getting Lurrus from the Companion Zone? Potentially casting Unsettled Mariner as early as next turn if we tick up Ether Vial? Or do you like, for example, playing a Lord, leaving up Relic, leaving up Vial? Some of these plays, I'm not even sure that I remember exactly what I did there. Some of them are pretty close in value, I'd say. And some of them took a little while to actually to think through and come to a decision. Any particular reason? In general, if you guys are going to like give me a suggestion about a line that you would take, just like a thought, like added onto that, like Lurrus because I think the opponent's going to do this, or they have no threats and they might have removal. Yeah, no, that's a good observation. For me, another consideration is that if I cast the Lord to use my mana, I'm not really using Ether Vial this turn. Like, you really want to use Trickster when they have an active creature, like, wanting to attack. So I'm either going to waste tempo here by casting a Lord and potentially vialing in a Trickster, or not vialing in a Trickster. So I believe the line that I took was putting Lurrus into hand here. So let's go ahead and chip the opponent's graveyard a little bit. Play the Seachrome Coast. Sequencing is important, right? Make sure that it comes in untapped as the third land, and let's go ahead and put Lurrus into hand. So actually this feels quite good in this spot because next turn we can comfortably tick Aether Vial up. We can play Mariner from the graveyard. If the opponent misses a land drop, Mariner potentially just taxing their mana quite a lot. And it can either play the Lord or hold up Trickster depending on what they do on their turn. So putting Lurrus into hand on turn 3, not a line that comes up very often with this deck. But clearly a nice option to have in this particular game, and a nice example of why or how Lurrus can be very good as a companion in Merfolk. All right, opponent starts with a bauble. They have 6 cards in hand. They play a tapped Watery Grave. Obviously a little bit shook. Want to keep that life total high. So pretty easy choice here, just to Vial in the Lord. I mean, you can make a case for playing Lurrus, playing Mariner, trying to get Mariner on the board, and then putting the Lord on the table with protection. But they've got 2 mana up. They've got the bauble to crack to be able to kill Lurrus if they have a fatal push. So violating the Lord here seemed fine. They obviously want to protect their life total. If they don't have removal, I'd like to be able to start attacking. So chose to put the Lord down. The opponent hit their life total with Dismember and then backed up. And now they're just passing the turn. So sequencing here, not so super clutch. I did draw Chalice of the Void. Any number of plays like Lurrus plus Unsettled Mariner would force the opponent to use their removal if they have it. If they have a push, playing Chalice of the Void would force them to cast the push right away. So I just chose to. I revealed the Trickster just to be able to get that in untapped, and I'm just going to play the Lurrus through Vial right now. Go for Mariner, see what they're working with, and it looks like they do want to cast this Dismember. And they did it by only paying 2 life and tapping the 2 black that they had. Or, well, 1 black plus 1 generic. All right, so Lord down. We get to chip the opponent's graveyard again. And so I don't think I'm even going to go to you guys for the line here. Chalice of the Void is absolutely insane in this matchup. And so just rather than like leave up Relic or leave up Trickster, just getting Chalice on the board is clearly the best option here. And in fact, Lurrus is a way to get Chalice back if they sideboarded in something like a Braid and blow up the Chalice. That was funny, actually. In response to me playing Chalice, they cracked the bauble, targeting me, and it just countered the bauble. So a little bit of a whoopsie by the opponent there. But if you play like 41 drops in your deck, then Chalice tends to be pretty unnerving. Okay, opponent plays another land, and we see a Dreadbore on Lurrus. So reasonable. Virtually tapping the opponent out here, since Unsettled Mariner just makes it hard for them to actually end Chalice is going to make it impossible for them to actually do anything with that, unless they have another Dismember in hand. But then they can't actually pay for the Mariner. So Mariner doing a nice job here. Unfortunately, Aether Vial pretty much offline at this point, since the only 3-drop in the whole deck is Lurrus. Chip away at the graveyard. We're going to go ahead and cast the Lord. Now, that might have been... Yeah, that was fine. We couldn't Vial it in, because Vial's not on 2 anymore. So just cast it. If they had... Again, if they had like Mystic Dispute, that would have been pretty good because it's a 3-drop, plays right through Chalice, and would have been able to counter the Lord, but they didn't have it. So, okay, Kroxa. It's a good card, but we do get to just cast the Trickster here, and the opponent scooped in response to that. So yeah. No, exactly. We got out way ahead in that game and felt pretty good. So again, if you don't know the result of the match and you don't want to know, look away for a second right now, please. I'm going to click right now. And we're back for the third and final game in round 4. 3-0 in the league. Opponent's going to be on the play this time. And thoughts on the hand? Does it look borderline? Does it look like a snap keep? Even during the replays, you can rearrange the cards in your hand. It's kind of cool. Yeah, for me, this is an easy keep. Easy peasy. Mariner's quite good. Lords are excellent against them. Lords are actually significantly better against Grixis Shadow than Jund's Shadow, just because they naturally give us access to Island Walk. So when they lower their life total, if we can jam a Lord, they push it. Next turn, we jam another Lord. Maybe they're out of pushes now and they can't block, and we just kill them from 3 to 0 or whatever. So all the cards in hand are quite good. Mutavault obviously dodges some removal. So it's a keep. It's not an utter like crazy slam dunk. Like to make this a crazy slam dunk, I would say get rid of the 2 Mutavaults and add an Ether Vial and a Chalice of the Void, and then that would be like the crazy nuts. But the opponent's on the play, and they will have an opportunity to Thoughtseize or Inquisition us. Once again, they kept on 7. Should be a good game. Drawing a 5th land here, not a good way to start, I'd say. So open up with the Seachrome Coast and just pass the turn. Yeah, the Mutavaults are like creatures, right? So they do make it pretty aggressive. Although the aggressive is a little weird because Mutavaults are pretty slow as far as aggression goes. We have to develop our board first, and then finally, like a turn or 2 after that, we can start getting in with the Mutavaults. Okay, Polluted Delta after the opponent fetched and shocked. Fetch and shock again. And Kroxa. All right, so another decision point here. What do you guys discard here? You guys know how Kroxa works, right? If we discard a land, Kroxa deals 3 damage to us. If we discard a non-land, it doesn't deal damage to us, but obviously we lose one of our cards. So potentially a clear-cut decision here. But since the whole point of this stream here is sort of an educational opportunity, opportunity to interact with you guys. What are you going to pitch? I don't know if you guys are thinking or if there's a delay or if you don't care. So for me, I mean, it's a little bit obvious, I think. So you're saying drop 1 Mutavault, which is very interesting, and it's one of the reasons that I ask these questions. And for me, I don't think I pitch a Mutavault. I think I pitch one of the islands. I can't actually remember now. We've got white, we've got blue, and I don't know how important double spelling is here just yet. The Mutavaults are creatures unto themselves, so pitching one is losing valuable resources, and we've got a lot more blue sources in the deck. So I believe, if I recall correctly, that I pitched one of these islands. And I did. All right. So that was the opponent's turn, and with Kroxa in the graveyard, Relic is actually kind of a cool draw off the top. So is there a clear play here now, guys? Or and by guys, I mean Lonely Isotope, since nobody else seems particularly interested in this exercise. We've got four spells we could cast this turn. So, a lot of options. Land sequencing, right? I could play a Mutavault, play a Relic, potentially attack with a Mutavault next turn, keep my cards in hand, hold up Relic. All right, so what are we doing here, Isotope? What do you got for me? What's the line? Take me to the promised land. Opponent's at 14. We don't have too much more work to do. We've got a lot of good cards. We just need to choose the order correctly. What to do. We also have this guy in hand, though, on turn 2. That's not relevant just yet. Kale jumping in with the suggestions. I love it. Mariner, maybe. You don't play Merfolk. Don't worry if you play Merfolk. As long as you know what the cards do, you're totally qualified to make suggestions here. You know, it's not rocket science, but there are some considerations. All right. So I love the ideas. Relic Mutavault. Now, Isotope, what is I get the Relic idea for sure, but what's the idea with Mutavault on the sequencing? Crocs is definitely dangerous. Dangerous card. So again, I get the Relic, and I think there's maybe like a 10-second delay or something here. So inevitably, this kind of interaction is going to take a little while. All right, so the thought is that I can attack next turn. That's totally fair. So let me lay out my thought process for you guys, and you can tell me if you agree or disagree at this point. Well, Isotope, I'm getting a little bit confused at this point now because you said I can attack with Mutavault next turn, but you're saying something about a blue source now. So, what is the point about the blue source then? Like the blue source surely is irrelevant if we're attacking with Mutavault next turn, right? Irrelevant to the decision-making process. Like this could be any land, and we would still be attacking with Mutavault next turn. All right. So as you're thinking about that again because of the delay, I'll go through my thought process, and so I'm a little bit more in line with Kale here. There's a lot of considerations. The opponent's at 14, right? So when they are above 13, our concern is not dealing them damage, right? So the idea, first of all, of just playing Mutavault with the intention of attacking in this situation, just not the right way to address it, not the right way to think about it. Surely they can deal themselves damage to get down below. Maybe next turn they play a shock, they go to 12, and we say, oh, well, hey, now we do want to attack with Mutavault. Still, it doesn't really work very well in that spot because we can't play a Lord to get Island Walk. And attack with the Mutavault. Playing a Mutavault sort of potentially reduces our options for playing spells. Like if I draw like a Benthic Biomancer into another blue source, then I can sequence like Island, play one of the creatures, and then follow it up with a bend somewhere down the line. So if you're not going to attack with Mutavault in the very next turn, it's almost always wrong to play the Mutavault. So playing out the island is correct. That brings us to the next sort of fork in the road, so to speak. Relic between Mariner. And I think that Kale, as I said, has the correct analysis. For Kroxa to escape, they need 5 cards apart from Kroxa in the graveyard. And then on top of that, more to the point, they need red, red, black, black, right? So they're literally, it's impossible for them, unless they're playing Simian Spirit Guide, to exile Kroxa next turn. Right, or escape it next turn is what I meant to say. And even if they had the mana, it might be impossible for them to get three more cards and still have mana up. So Kroxa definitely not a concern next turn. So we can wait on the Relic for a little while. So with Relic and Mutavault sort of off the table as options, that sort of leaves Lords or Mariners. And virtually always you're going to lead with Mariner. It just forces the opponent to at least commit one more mana to deal with Mariner, and then you can follow up with your other creatures, knowing that the opponent has one less or one fewer removal spell in hand. I think you could have seen for a second there, it flashed like I was casting Relic. So clearly I was thinking about these concerns as well. I think I actually began casting Relic, but then backtracked, thought about the mana situation, thought about the resource situation in the graveyard, and finally just put Unsettled Mariner on the board. So quite a lot to think about on that turn. Turn 2, you think it should be pretty easy, but it's really not that easy. Okay, so opponent did immediately fill up their graveyard, so kind of cool. Shows us that I was underestimating their ability to fill up the graveyard fast. So something to keep in mind when you're playing against Death Shadow. But still, entirely relevant is the really intensive mana cost that Kroxa has to escape. So still not a threat this turn. Opponent plays an untapped Blood Crypt. Remember, Mutavault attacking when they're above 13 life, not really relevant. That was something I mentioned last turn. And here, what are we going to see? Potentially a Gurmag Angler, I think. They're tapping 2 mana. Now, this is just a pop quiz. Do you guys know the casting cost of Gurmag Angler offhand? Don't Google it. Don't Google it. This is just a magic test. What is the casting cost of Gurmag Angler? I'll wait. Converted mana cost 6. All right. So we've got Isotope and Kale saying that the converted mana cost of Gurmag Angler is 6, and you're both wrong. The converted mana cost is 7. So it's 1 black plus 6 generic, right? So they wanted to leave Kroxa, so they tapped 2, and then they exiled 5 cards, paying the total of 7. So potentially that's what you meant, but I was just asking the casting cost, and so 6 is the wrong answer. So be more careful with your answers when so much is on the line, as in this very, very important Magic game. So pretty cool development for us. Obviously, a 5/5 is a significant threat, but Kroxa is going to be out of the picture pretty soon because they've only got 1 card in the graveyard, and unless they have a Street Wraith in hand to sort of cycle and be able to exile to Relic, we're just going to be able to chip Kroxa right out of their yard. So we drew a land. Not that great. Looks like I rushed ahead and just slammed the Mutavault, so I didn't get to ask you guys what you thought about land sequencing here. Once again, many options, including getting Lurrus into hand, playing a Lord, playing Relic and cracking. I mean, I think the line is a little bit quick, a little bit easier to see here, so I'm not going to sort of belabor it too much. They've got an island on the battlefield. We've got a creature ready to attack. So for me, play a Lord, play the Relic, get rid of Kroxa. Pretty awesome turn. So we're going to take him down to 9. And we're already close to lethal on board because 3, 3, and 2 is 8. Play another Lord. Obviously, it's overkill after this attack. But the opponent is going to be drawing up to their 5th card. They do have the 5/5 on the battlefield, so this is far from over. Death Shadow, extremely resilient. Lots of ways to disrupt what we're doing. Opponent goes straight to attacks. Now, odds are in this situation, with me having Island Walk, we're expecting an attack. They did go ahead and attack. Like a Temur Battle Rage would kind of stink here, but it would only put us down to 7 as things stand. If they had a Dismember, it doesn't. This is not a Death Shadow, so it doesn't grow as their life total gets lower. So really, the max damage here is just 10. So we're certainly not going to block. So I asked this question about Gurmag Angler because I'm pretty sure a lot of people, even people who play Modern a lot, aren't really sure about the casting cost. And isn't it important to know the casting cost? Like I used to just be like, it's like black plus some number, but it's black plus a very specific number, and that number is 6. I don't know if you guys have ever really looked closely at this art, but an anglerfish is something that has the little hunting, or it's like I don't know too much about it, but it's the thing that has the fish that have the dangly thing. I think in some of them it's like a light, or maybe that's from a cartoon or something. I don't know. But in this case, this angler has like the form of a person, so they're trying to lure a person to what? I don't know what I would do if I saw this weird pink striped person floating in the air. If I would want to go and hug it or something, and then the angler would eat me. But anyhow, I'm getting a little bit off the topic here. So opponent has played a Death Shadow here. And it looks like, well, they have another land. They play it tapped. All right. It's putting us in a really, really interesting situation here. Another land was probably the last thing that we wanted to see here. So the ball is in your court. Chatters. What is the play? This is crunch time for sure. A lot of options, just like last turn, but now multiple more branches in the decision tree, right? We can choose which land to play, whether we play the Lord, whether we get Luris, whether we crack the Relic for a redraw, maybe hit something like a Trickster, maybe Harbinger to bounce the Gurmag Angler, whether we want to activate the Mutavault, attack. Lot of options. Now we have the Mariner on the board. No Chalice, right? So their 1-drops are live, but they do have to pay the tax, right? So we're not looking out for something like Double Push or Bolt plus Push, or even something like Bolt plus Stubborn Denial or something, because they have to pay the tax, right? So they need exactly, if they're going to interact with me right now, they need exactly a 1-mana spell to do something. All right, Kale, you're starting to think through it. So Lord for sure. I think I'm on board with that. So you're saying, so play the Mutavault, activate Mutavault. That would tap us out effectively, right? So we're paying 2 blue to play the Lord. Mutavault pays for Mutavault. Now we've got Mutavault activated. I'm not sure I understand with your swing. Am I swinging just with Mutavault? Am I swinging with the team? What am I doing? So remember, this is game 3. Opponent won game 1. I won game 2, partially on the back of Chalice. We also had an Ether Vial, I believe, which is always very helpful in this matchup. So then, what is the attack here? Some of you guys might have been in the Merfolk Discord while I was actually playing this, and I was asking people what they thought, but ultimately I went with my line. Pretty much everybody was saying a different line, including actually the designer of this particular deck, the Dogfish. All right, Kale, cool. You might be the only one in here with me right now. So let's do this. Let's figure this out. Swing all is obviously a very good option, right? You probably calculated that it would be swinging for 11, which would be enough just to win the game. Obviously, there's some potential risks involved in that line, right? And that's fine. That's a good camp to be in. But I think my thought was that in this situation, you have to be a little bit more careful than that, because they have 3 cards in hand. They can have, if they have Fatal Push or Lightning Bolt, and we go all in, it pretty much just loses us the game right away. So let's think about how that would look, right? I did play the Lord, right? So we just go ahead and get the Lord on the table. And then let's think for a second. Activate Mutavault, turn all the dudes sideways, right? Now, The opponent pushes this lord, eats this lord. They're set to take after the push. This would just be 3 and 3 with Mutavault. So they're set to take 6. They would go down to 3, and the Mutavault and the Death Shadow would be a 10-10, and I would have no blockers, so I would just lose on the spot, right? So if the decision is between winning on the spot or losing on the spot, and we have room to hedge a little bit, to me it seems like hedging is correct. And so then with that in mind, what is the correct hedge? Like how should we do it? What is the correct choice, right? So obviously after the explanation I just gave, if they kill this lord can just get eaten. So we're probably almost certainly not going to attack with this lord, right? So then that leaves whether we want to attack with Mariner, whether we want to attack with Mutavault, whether we want to attack with both Mariner and Mutavault. So if we attack with Mariner and Mutavault and they don't have anything, obviously that's a little bit weird because it hits them for 8 and puts them like at maximum Death Shadow. Very scary position to be in with 2 untapped lords. They could kill one of them. I'd have to chump with the other. It just feels pretty sketchy. But let's try to think, through how that might play out. If I attack with Mutavault, unsell a Mariner, they untap. Maybe they draw 1 piece of removal, so they'll kill 1 lord. I'm forced to chump the 10-10. They get in with the 5. I go down to 7. I untap. I have 2 fewer lords, but they would be at 1. And I'd still be able to attack for some damage, right? Because I'd have lost both lords, but I'd have a 2/2 and 2/2/2 Mutavaults, right? So getting in for some amount of damage clearly still gives us an option to win the game when it comes back to us, right? So getting in for something here just seemed better to me because it forces the opponent to have enough to actually win, right? Not just to be scary. Like right now they're a little bit scary, but they have to actually win. If I attack with just even 1 creature, like the Mariner, they go down to 5. Now, Death Shadow's not so gigantic. It would just be, an 8/8. I could maybe chump block with one of the Mutavaults, right? Take 5, go down to 7. Even take 10, right? With a Team or Battle Rage, go down to 2, pretty comfortable. Although they would probably, if I block, they would just they would win because they would Battle Rage the Death Shadow. So that's not the best consideration here. But assuming they don't have the Battle Rage, which you kind of have to assume, chump with one of the Mutavaults. They are, remember, at 5. Take 5, and then what? We have a pretty nice attack on the way back if we have Lord Mariner still. So I did not like the all-in attack. It seemed way too risky to me with 3 cards in their hand. Particularly choosing to leave the 2 mana up seems sketchy. So anyhow, I just went for the attack with the Mariner. Don't know if it's right or not. There's so many decisions to make. But the opponent does have a push. The push is targeting one of the lords. I don't know if you watched my clock, but I did take a good 3 or 4 minutes, I think, making that decision. So if I had gone in with the attack, I would have lost on the spot. Because they would have killed this lord, eaten this lord. I would have gotten in for 4 damage. 6 damage. But I would have no lords. I'd be tapped out. This would be gigantic, and I would just lose. So get rid of the push immediately with the relic, so Snapcaster can't recast that. Get him for 3 damage, and now the opponent's got to do something. So now imagine that they just have lands in hand, right? I guess they attack. I'm going to block with one of the Mutavaults. I could untap, activate a Mutavault, and swing for 8, right? So I beat them if they have nothing. And if they don't attack and they have nothing, I can still win with Island Walk. Now, during the game, I was telling the opponent last turn, I'm sorry, I'm thinking, it's a difficult decision. They were very cool with it. and they told me that they just top decked this card, which is pretty rough in this situation. Engineered Explosives on 2 with 2 mana up means that they can just kill my 2 creatures on board. Mutavault's probably not going to get there by themselves. Even if I draw a Lord off the top, play it, I can only attack for 3. They've got 12 points of damage on the board right now. So one plays it, and they just crack it right away. Now, for me, I think this might have been a misstep on their part. If their plan was to just crack the Engineered Explosives, there's no reason to not do it on our turn, and just make sure that I can't like win by getting another Lord on the table or something like that. I think they might have forgotten that I can block with Mutavault. Now, maybe they were thinking, chump with Mutavault, not a big deal. They'll just win on the next turn, whatever. But still, like, pretty sketchy for me, I think, cracking this when they didn't need to crack it yet. But maybe it doesn't matter so much. Maybe it does. I don't know. All right. Well, I mean, am I going to block with the Lord, or am I going to block with a Mutavault? Right? I don't think I was going to block with the Lord anyway. So if the point is, well, now they're going to force me to chump with a Mutavault, kind of weird, right? I mean, I didn't have any double block or anything. Like, I couldn't have... They had this attack even with the Lord on the table, is the point, right? So block the bigger creature. Opponent tapped out. So I drew a Trickster, which immediately just like my eyes lit up, because it's something that potentially lets me sort of claw my way into this situation. So once again, Kale or Isotope, if you're still here with me, how do we play this? What do we do? What do we do? We've still got Lurrus as an option, but I think we just lose if we get Lurrus, right? Do we... Yeah, no, that's actually a good call, I think, because I activated Mutavault, and I had the mana from the Mutavault, so I could have cracked the Relic for sure. Excellent call. I think that just flew right underneath my radar. So nice catch. I think I would have done that as well. Had I actually thought about it. So sequencing here. Do we just wait till their attack step and tap down Death Shadow and just sort of chill? Is that the plan? Typically, that's what we very often do with Trickster, right? Just beginning of combat. Tap down the Death Shadow. Is that the line here? We've only got Merfolk revealing lands in our hand. Do we play the Wanderwine Hub untapped and reveal the Merfolk Trickster? Why or why not? Do we crack the Relic now, since I missed the opportunity on the last turn? Oh, all right, good question. Good question. You guys are gonna learn a little bit. Trickster is a pretty amazing card. It has Flash. Cost 2, blue. It taps a creature. So 2 separate parts of its ability. It taps a creature, and then that creature loses all of its abilities. It loses all of its text. Okay, so people either forget one or the other very often with Trickster. Like if a Tarmogoyf is attacking, they don't remember that Trickster strips its text. Now, for those of you guys who don't know about how that interaction works with Tarmogoyf, if Trickster targets a Tarmogoyf loses its text and it becomes a 0/1, right? So now Trickster as a 2/2 can just eat Tarmogoyf, and that's one of the best plays with Trickster. It's very powerful. So it's something that Jund pilots overlook all the time. Now, how do you guys think that Trickster interacts with Death Shadow? And again, maybe there's some Merfolk pilots in here. Yes, Kale, very nice. It becomes a 13/13, right? So you very rarely, if ever, probably never, want to let them attack with Death Shadow and then flash in Trickster. That's just pretty bad, right? So I see Isotope is back with us. It says crack relic and see what you draw. Interesting. Kale, are you on board with that? Crack relic and see what we draw. I don't know if I got an answer on whether to play Wanderwine. Do we reveal Trickster? Do we not? I'm gonna give you guys a second to think about that. I'll be back in just a moment. All right, guys. All I see has been added since I left was, that's tricky. All right, Kale, keep going with that thought. Why is it risky? Tell me why it's risky. Try to remember like how this feels when the game is live, right? Like, I mean, I'm not going to time out, but at the same time, like these are some pretty complicated decisions to make all at once, right? Like you kind of have to just pick a line and play the line, and if you're playing paper, your opponent is calling a judge, and you're just like, look, like it's really complicated. it's really complicated. Like if you add in, I mean, Luris not so complicated. But let's just add it as a possibility. Luris, cracking relic, attacking, not attacking, revealing, not revealing. You know, there's many branches, and you have to sort of find the best path through all of them. Isotope, I like you're thinking through it. Cracking relic, see what I draw. If I draw a lord, I keep Trickster up. Try to win next turn. Fair. Which means, of course, according to that line, I would definitely have to play the Wanderwine Hub, revealing the Trickster. After I crack the relic, I would have the Lord in hand. They could potentially grab it with a Thoughtseize or an Inquisition, something like that. Remember that I'm also just dead. I'm dead to some stuff. So yeah, I guess Trickster tapping down their shadow would presumably allow me to stay alive. So I think Isotope has his line, his or her line. I don't know if you guys are guys or gals. And Kale, let's see. I'm sorry. It seems like you made another comment here. Maybe it's not risky, but if they counter the Trickster, I'm dead. All right, so I think we've probably thought about this situation enough, and I'll start to tell you guys my thought process here. So, I like the line of thought that goes to a Lord. Makes a lot of sense because Mutavault is 2 power, Trickster is 2 power. If we get a Lord on the table, we can play it next turn. We'll have 3 power, 3 power. They're exactly at 6, and that would be good enough to make it happen. So again, totally legitimate train of thought, and a potentially winning line, right? If I was to crack this, see a Lord, play Wanderwine Hub. Actually, I don't even need to reveal on your line, right? I don't need to reveal with your line because I would just flash in Trickster with this mana, right? Surprise them with the Trickster. Take 5, have the Lord in hand, untap, play the Lord, activate Mutavault, swing for the win. So yes, that's kind of cool. You don't have to even reveal with Wanderwine Hub. Now, It's not the line that I took, and I don't think it's the best. And I'm happy for you guys to sort of talk back at me about this if I'm missing something. But we do have the attack with Mutavault, and I also love that Kale saw that. It does not seem like a situation where we want to attack, right? We are on the back foot to be sure, right? But what happens if we attack with Mutavault? We put them to 4, right? Which means that we could potentially just win with the 4 damage that we have across our creatures, right? And we don't necessarily need a Lord off the top. But if we follow that thought processes through, if we flash in Trickster, tap down the Death Shadow, if the opponent doesn't have lethal with Gurmag Angler, they're not going to attack with it, which means that we really do need a Lord to be able to push past the Angler and have any chance at getting lethal, because simply getting in, throwing our Trickster and our Mutavault into the Angler with them at 4, clearly not going to get us there, right? Well, so Kale, the problem is, as I was just outlining, is we're not tapping down the Death Shadow in combat. So it's not like we can lure like a full attack and then take away, like Tarmogoyf, take away all the power. We would have to chump the Death Shadow, right? With something, which would mean that, well, probably the Trickster, since this is the line where we attacked with Mutavault. So if we chump with the Trickster, we're sort of back to square one, where they're at 4 from the Mutavault, and we don't have enough damage to be able to finish them off. So honestly, so I'm gonna lay out what I did. I did like the idea of getting with Mutavault, getting them down to 4. For me, revealing the Trickster doesn't matter, because the best time to cast Trickster is during their upkeep, because even though in their deck, the main deck, they don't play anything that can counter our creatures, they do bring in stuff like Mystical Dispute, which could counter a Trickster, and going from 2 cards to 3 cards, now they have 50% more cards in their hand to be able to draw what they need to counter the Trickster. I'm looking to cast a Trickster during their upkeep, and it doesn't matter to them if they know that I have it or not in that spot. So, but having talked through this a little bit more during the stream, I know that we could calculate that they would not attack with the Angler, which means we do need to top deck the Lord in this spot anyway, which puts us in a tough spot. So let's go ahead, activate the Relic just to chip away the EE. Doesn't really matter very much. I am going to charge up the Mutavault, get in for 2, and again, just sort of tap down the Death Shadow on their upkeep. That was my line. Okay, opponent's got 4 mana, very nice color distribution, and they're going to be drawing up to 3 cards. So they did not counter the Trickster, so step 1. If they have Battle Rage, we're dead, because 10 over 2 is 8. We would go to -1. Opponent plays a Bauble, and the thing about this situation is it's very awkward. It's one of the most awkward situations I've seen in a while with Wanderwine hubs, right? Because to win on the spot, I guess we could draw a Trickster to tap this down. Maybe that's you're saying, maybe you were saying that Trickster is lethal next turn if I draw another Trickster off the top, and in which case, yes, that's an excellent observation. So Kale, you're saying we're dead to a lot of things, they're dead to a lot of things. The opponent had no plays on their main phase apart from the Mishra's Bauble. Yeah, both really, right? Like, it's an extremely tense situation. Like, if they had any removal, they would just, I guess, well, we don't die, but they can get in a nice attack. Like, kill the Trickster, hit me with the Angler, put me to 2, difficult spot. Turns like Kolaghan's Command into a lethal burn spell. I wouldn't have lethal even if I drew and played a Lord. It would only put them down to 1, which makes their Death Shadow, I guess, gigantic, right? A 12/12. And you can see that it is a 13-13 right now since it lost its text. So Trickster off the top should do it. In theory, a Dismember might do it because you get rid of the blocker and you just attack. Now, the reason I started saying Wanderwine Hub is awkward is because if I had, say, for example, just another Mutavault or another island in hand, I could, if I drew garbage, I could just play the land and crack Relic, and then I'd have another chance at drawing a Trickster or a Lord to use the blue mana and just attack and win. But Wanderwine Hub gonna come in untapped unless I draw Merfolk. So let's see what I draw. So I drew the Lord, right? And they didn't use removal on their turn, which they almost certainly should have or would have if they had it. And they didn't even crack the bubble to see my top deck. So this is a situation where you absolutely just have to just jam. But I believe what I did, just to play as tight as possible, even though it's sort of meaningless, was I played the Wanderwine Hub, revealed the Lord, cracked the Relic just to see what I draw. Didn't really matter. I don't see how that does anything really. Play the Lord, activate Mutavault, attack, and if the opponent has something, they're gonna win and I'm gonna lose. Actually, it's not even determined yet because I could, again, in theory, chump with a Lord like the Death Shadow. If they have removal, they'll eat one of my creatures, go down to 2, and then I get to untap with one of my creatures. So opponent cracks the bauble and they scooped. So it was a really, really close game. Extremely interesting decisions to be made. And so I thought it would be really valuable and interesting, hopefully for you guys, to sort of walk through that. Hopefully it wasn't too painful, like taking all that time to look at all that stuff. But for me, it was fascinating, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. So that put me at 4-0 in the league. Oh, they definitely should have done that. Wow. They definitely should have done that. What a misplay. Whether it was to see, my top deck or their top deck, it doesn't matter, but they should have absolutely cracked Mishra's bubble. And it's funny that, I recognize like the silliness of them doing it during my attack because they can't draw off of it right now, but I didn't quite compute that they missed the opportunity for a redraw, which is what they should have been like manically looking for. So very nice catch. It's possible that with me taking so much time thinking about my plays that, the opponent zoned out and just kind of forgot, but that was potentially massive. Like if they crack this, drew a fatal push on my upkeep, this would have not been a very successful attack. But I was pretty thrilled to win this one because when they cast Engineered Explosives, wiping away my board, I had to chump with a Mutavault. I had only a 2/2 man land on the board. And at that point, I think they were at 6. They were at 6 life, and I top decked exactly what I needed to top deck in the order that I needed to top deck them. I top decked a Trickster into a Lord. And so just insane. So Isotope, what are you saying their misplays are? I sort of felt like cracking the EE early like they did was potentially misguided. But if you think that through and you take it back to our turn, we would have had a Lord and a Mutavault on the table. And a Mariner. If I just like activated the Mutavault to attack, like I actually did in the game, the opponent could just crack it at that point, and it doesn't make a difference. So I think it was fine for them to crack it when they did crack it. So I don't really know that was a misplay, but this is a very clear-cut misplay. Like, why not draw an extra card? It's a free extra card. All right, I don't know where you guys are going to find this kind of analysis of Modern other than in my channel, because I haven't seen it. So if you guys don't want to find out the result of the league, you can look away right now. I'm going to go into round 5, so look away now, please. It wasn't just a great game, it was a great match. Like, the opponent got me in game 1, even though it was a little bit close. I'm pretty sure I mulliganed, and then they got me. I wasn't able to sort of hang on. And then game 2, I think Chalice did a great job. And Ether Vial, like, I kind of stomped them in game 2. And then game 3 was a really, really interesting game. Like, just a really interesting game that seemed to hinge extremely heavily on skill, right? Like, the opponent missed a redraw for removal, which was clutch at the end, like absolutely massive. And I chose to play around an all-out attack that would have just lost me the game on the spot if they had removal, which they did. And just getting in with one creature lowered their life total enough that I was ultimately able to maneuver to a win. So super cool. What a match that was. All right. So going into round 5, playing against Sonkers, kind of a nice name. I like the avatar. That's pretty awesome. Looks like they won the die roll. It's the final round. We would love to have a nice opening hand. Let's reveal Luris and see what we're working with. So, you know, I think maybe you two guys are not Merfolk players, but can you tell if this is a keep or if it's like potentially sketchy, like because it's one land? Is it a snap keep? Is it like a mediocre? How do you guys rank this? Yeah, this is a super snap keep. Super duper snap keep. Like crazy super duper ultra crazy mega snap keep. I cannot overstate how good this hand is. First of all, we're on the draw, which makes the one lander that much more acceptable because we're going to have an extra draw step, extra chances to hit our second land by turn 2. Ether Vial on turn 1 is the best play. If the opponent has Thoughtseize to take away the Ether Vial, we have Force, just pitching a Lord or pitching a Trickster to keep the Ether Vial. We have Silvergill Adept to offset the loss of card advantage from the Force. We have Dismember to deal with any threats. This hand is almost like we drew like an extra card or two. It's a really, really, really good hand. So I was really psyched to see this for round 5. So I think the opponent kept their 7 as well. And they're opening up with Forest. This is an amazing online kind of promo Forest. I think it's like an aerial view looking down at some cluster of trunks in a grove that's sort of like just sending the trees upwards into the sky. So opponent suspended Search for Tomorrow. So is this like super old school Scapeshift? Spreading Seas, sometimes useful against Scapeshift if you can hit a Valakut, but we really do want to hit a land here. Spreading Seas, not a terrible thing to pitch to Force of Negation. Okay, so Misty Rainforest, not a dead giveaway of what variety of Scapeshift the opponent is playing, but pretty much the top deck in the format right now, or the second top deck, involves Uro, right? So I'm thinking this blue is not just like a random blue fetch land and they're just going to get a basic forest. Like, I'm starting at this point to think that I'm playing against like an Uro pile that probably has some Titans and probably Scapeshift. All right, so Vial goes to 1, and we really would love to draw a land here. So we drew a land, and you can see the value, guys, of being on draw in one land situations, right? Like, I whiffed once. I drew Spreading Seas. If I was on the play, that draw for turn 2 would have been pretty bad. I would have lost tempo, but in this case, I drew it right on time. And there are options. If I'm putting them on counter magic, I might want to wait to vial in Silvergill to guarantee the card advantage off of it. But it's a Scape Shift deck, so if they do run some kind of counter magic, they're probably not running a lot, and typical sequencing would dictate that Silvergill is the best thing to start off with, so I did lead with the Silvergill. Okay, Cracking Misty, getting a basic island. Interesting, very interesting. Remember, this is the 4-0 bracket right now, so opponent knows what they're doing. So we've got Search for Tomorrow into 2 basics. Remand, really not that terrible here. We'd love to get Silvergill onto the board at some point, again, to sort of maintain that card advantage. So Remand is a great card for these kinds of combo-oriented decks because when they want to go off, like casting Scape Shift, if we do have the counter spell and they remand it, like a cryptic command or something, opponent won't be able to cast it again, and they'll just win right away. So Scape Shift, blue-green Scape Shift decks actually have quite a history in Modern. One of my best friends who plays Magic played blue-green Scape Shift for a good while, and it's pretty cool. You get like Snapcaster, Remand, and you just keep hitting all your land drops. So Search for Tomorrow going to come off Suspend. We're certainly not going to force that. They could be playing things like Summoner's Pact or Scape Shift being like the best card to counter. And now seeing all of these colors, I'm starting to think the deck is Bring to Light Scape Shift because they want to hit 4 colors and go grab Scape Shift. So they get to effectively run like 8 copies of Scape Shift in the deck between Bring to Light and Scape Shift itself. But they're just passing the turn here, so potentially just representing another Remand, it looks like. They don't have anything close to like Cryptic Mana. And I doubt that this deck even plays Cryptic Command. Unsettled Mariner, a very interesting draw here. So we do have Force as protection. The Spreading Seas could take them off black. That's not a terrible line. And against Bring to Light, if that is in fact what we're playing against, I have at certain points in the past chosen to keep some Spreading Seas in to mess with their colors. So what do you guys do here? What do you cast? What do you vial? What is the plan? We didn't draw a third land, so getting a little bit backed up, but really keeping a 1-lander and vial, hitting your second land drop on time, you can't really complain about anything. Like this is a pretty nice situation for us. And there's a lot of options. If we're expecting another Remand, we could just pass the turn back to them and potentially like flash in Trickster on their end step to increase our pressure. Not let them get value out of Remand. And I quite like that because against decks like this, they're really digging to like particular cards. They really want to find their Scape Shift or their Bring to Light. And so not giving them the option to Remand, like why would they just pass the turn here if they didn't have a counterspell up, you know? Maybe they have Growth Spiral. That's another card they could have. They could potentially play Icefang Coatl, but note that they're not playing Snowlands, right? So that's not really a consideration. So I'm seeing either Remand or Growth Spiral here, and either of them for me just makes me kind of want to leave Trickster up. So with that being the case, there's really no play forced here. And they didn't have the Growth Spiral, so pretty sure it was going to be a Remand. They play a Steam Vents tapped, and what else do they got now? Sakura Tribe Elder tapping their blue, so no counterspell coming this turn. And you know what? I think I actually thought better of flashing in the Trickster, just in case they do have a Titan. Trickster can be like super good, just time walking them. So I think I just vialed in a creature on the end step. And so and did not flash in the Trickster. So with that being the case, which of our many options do you guys use Ether Vial to get onto the board here? So I think Silvergill is a fine option. It obviously it draws us cards. We'd like to hit a third land. Maybe we can hardcast Force. But my choice was Mariner because green and black to me looks like Assassin's Trophy, and they could get Ether Vial right now, which would kind of wreck us. But if we can surprise them with Unsettled Mariner right now, like they're like, oh, he's just gonna Violin a Lord, whatever. Violin Mariner. Now all of a sudden it turns off their trophy. Now, if they do have Abrupt Decay, it would still kill the Vial or Mariner, because Mariner says counter that spell, and Abrupt Decay can't be countered. So Abrupt Decay would still get me, but this would turn off trophy. So I chose to go with Mariner, and since they have islands, I can follow up by getting a Lord onto the table with mana, since they're tapped out of blue. Once you get to the point where you can take Ether Vial up to 3, you want to start thinking about it, since we have Lurrus in the companion zone. But since we can't even pay for Lurrus now, and we have lots of 2-drops, definitely going to keep Ether Vial on 2. So not just a land, but a really, really excellent land that prevents the opponent from stopping my creatures with counterspells anymore. So again, since they don't have counters up, and I want to attack this turn, I'm just going to use mana to cast a Lord of Atlantis. I'm going to have Force on their turn, even without the mana, and I've got Dismember up, even though it might not do anything. Interesting to note that if they get like a Primeval Titan and give it haste, Dismember will shrink it from a 6/6 down to a 1/1. So it creates a possibility where you can either eat a Primetime or potentially trade with it. So not completely dead against Primetime. All right, so I'm going to get in for 3. And if they go for like a hasty Titan line, I can always tap it down with Trickster, with the Vial. And if they don't do that, I can just Vial in Adept. Okay, sacking it, getting another blue. Note that they do have 4 colors, red, green, blue, black. That's all they want to run. I think it's the can you cast Bring to Light for 5? I guess you can. It's a 5-drop, but I think for some reason it maxes out at 4. Check that out, guys. Looks like I played correctly around Assassin's Trophy. Here they're going after the Lord. And remember, they could have used that if they wanted to blow up the Ether Vial, which is pretty significant in the matchup. So good call on getting Mariner on the board early. I do not like this Assassin's Trophy on the Lord. Against a traditional Scapeshift deck, I would almost always in the past let their removal resolve, like their spot removal, prioritizing the counter spells for their payoffs. But in this deck, I don't know if their payoff is going to be Primeval Titan or Uro or Scapeshift. And really, the only way I'm winning here is keeping this Lord on the table, keeping the power up on my creatures. So I am going to try to counter this. So I'm sorry, guys. Give me 1 second. I think I need to respond to my wife here. I'm sorry for the delay, guys. My wife is asking me a question about photography. She's in her studio taking pictures. She's not a photographer, but all right. So anyhow, she might keep asking me questions, but let's get back to action here. All right. So here we are. Me trying to force an Assassin's Trophy. Again, typically not something I would do necessarily against like a traditional Scapeshift deck. Who knows what's going on in this deck? It seemed like my plan here is to try to protect my creatures, so I tried. The opponent remands, which is not the end of the world, since I do get... oh, I'm sorry. They remanded their trophy, which is a sneaky play sometimes. They can grab the card back to their hand. Somebody was talking about this in the Merfolk Discord recently. The way that play actually sort of is presented on Magic Online is extremely misleading because... 90 out of 100 times when an opponent remands something, they're remanding your spell, right? So if they're remanding their own spell, it needs to be like bright lights, like beware, this is a weird play happening right now. All right, so for those of you guys just joining me right now, this is the 5th round of the league that I began on Wednesday during the stream. I just wrapped up the replay with extensive commentary on the Grixis Death Shadow matchup before this that put me at 4-0. It's an incredible match, so I encourage you to check out the replay of this video if you missed it. So end step, pretty easy choice. Opponent going to play a tapped Stomping Grounds. They've got 3 cards left in hand. We're going to go with Silvergill. At this point, another Force would be like an amazing draw. And now we kind of do have a choice about ticking Aether Vial up here. And for me, it seems like a fine option because means we could put Lurrus into hand and Vial him in. But ticking Aether Vial up and paying 3 would take Trickster offline. So I think we do have to just like wait a little bit longer here. Mutavault, I mean, it's sort of a creature. We've got a 2-turn clock here. Kind of weird cards in hand. Again, another Force would have been kind of the best draw. Getting in for 8. Opponent's going to... oh, I guess, yeah. So leaving... sorry to... I got ahead of myself. Since I left Aether Vial on 2 for Trickster, I could, of course, afford to pay the 3 mana for Lurrus, though the way that this game is reaching ahead pretty rapidly, so Lurrus probably not going to really play a role. I don't even have any permanents in the graveyard right now. So I think if the opponent plays a land, plays Scapeshift, or Bring to Light for Scapeshift, I think we just lose because they get 12 Valakut triggers between 6 mountains and 2 Valakits. So we're kind of praying that they don't have that. We've done our best to sort of stay in this. There's the 8th land, but they just passed, and it was a huge relief. And honestly, in this spot... well, they're still on their main phase. Okay, they went to their end, and I think I did not Vial in Trickster, but I certainly should have, because on my turn, like, the thing that they're most likely to have is, like, spot removal, right? In which case, they kill the Lord, and now I've got 2, 2, and 2, which is not lethal. But if I get the Trickster onto the table, it would be 2, 2, 2, 2, which obviously is 8. I think I was just like hyper conservative with the Trickster. Like maybe they draw into a Titan and they try to like get me with Hasty Titan. But it was just a mistake for me not to Vial in the Trickster here. All right, sorry guys. Let me check the. I need to check my wife's texts one more time. Yeah, I think she's got it now. All right, back to the chat. So here, I think we can afford to tick the Ether Vial up at this point. Spot removal, I can just replay something from the graveyard. So opponent during my upkeep, going for Assassin's Trophy, they have to pay the tax for Mariner, and going for the Lord. So it wasn't just happenstance that I just thought that Trickster might have been better to vial in on the opponent's end step. It actually was relevant in the game. It was pretty sad. I was a little frustrated that I made that misplay. You never want to misplay like in round 5 when you're going for the 5-0. But actually, it doesn't really matter. And maybe you guys see, I guess, potentially why it doesn't really matter. You guys still with me? Any thoughts on why that Assassin's Trophy is not the biggest deal? Yeah, you guys are on top of it. Very nice. So once again, Lurrus proving its value. And I did this all very quickly during the game. Opponent was very obviously F6'd. So I was pretty excited because I was just like, activate, play the Lord, attack for 9, and the opponent just took the 9, and that's game 1 in the bag. So up a game in round 5 against a very difficult matchup for Merfolk traditionally. Any kind of Scape Shift deck or Titan deck is just going to be among our hardest matchups, I think. So I'm going to close this window. If you don't want to see the result, you can look away for a moment right now. Okay, so I'm back with game 2, and I can show you guys what I chose to do with the sideboard. Looks like I took out all 3 Dismembers. I took out 1 Harbinger, 4 Spreading Seas. It's a kind of a weird borderline thing here because we can keep Bring to Light off of their colors by using Spreading Seas, but it's not guaranteed. Like, they have fetch lands. If we take them off of red, they can go get more red. If we take them off of black, they can go get more black. And they're already giving us access to Island Walk. So for me, there are better choices than Spreading Seas. So just for a total count here, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cards out. And so I would have brought in... Oh, I'm sorry, no, 7, because 1 Spreading Seas is already in the board. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? So would have brought in the 4th Force, 2 Monolithes. I'm getting tired doing all this. We need to figure out 4 more cards. I like to try to do this without looking at the sideboard. So once again, Force, 2 Monolithes, 2 Relics, because we're thinking Uro still, and if not Uro, then maybe Snapcaster. And what would the other card be coming in from the sideboard? I think I do have to take a peek rather than sitting here and thinking all day. I'm showing you guys stuff. Oh, I brought in 2 Tidebinder Mages, of course. I should have just known that because I see that there's only 1 Tidebinder here. So again, it's 3 more counter spells between Force, Leak, and then 2 Tidebinders and 2 Relics. Okay, so decently better. We do get 3 more counter spells, which is very, very important against a Bring to Light deck. Opponent going to be on the play. And let's see what the opening hand looks like. So, I mean, not much question here. This is a keep. It's a little bit sketchy because we obviously want another land or 2 down the line. But being on the draw, as we saw in other games on the stream, being on the draw, I think it was actually just the previous game, we kept the 1 lander with the Vial. You can more comfortably keep low land hands when you're on the draw. So easy keep, particularly because, well, it's just an excellent hand. Things it has going for it. Benthic Biomancer, if we flood or we draw things that are not very useful, like a Harbinger of the Tides, we can loot it away, potentially draw more counter spells. We have a counter spell in hand. We have beef to sort of push Island Walk damage. And, you know, Trickster can potentially time walk a Primeval Titan, get us, like, the lethal attack. So, very nice opening hand for game 2. I was feeling pretty happy, pretty confident, but the opponent kept their 7 as well. So, probably going to see some haymakers. Opponent suspends Search for Tomorrow, turn 1. We whiffed on lands, and Trickster, I don't know if it's necessarily the best thing we could be drawing right now. Okay, opponent untaps. Time counter is removed from Search. Opponent plays another land, cracks it, and maybe a Steve here is what I might expect. Okay, so Kora Tribe Elder already putting up the defense, but fortunately we have a Lord in hand that we can play and push through. They did play an island on their turn. So, what did I draw for the turn? Okay, well, you know, Relic is a card that I brought in from the sideboard. We do like to draw our sideboard cards, but not super relevant at the moment. And I kind of outlined already that I do want to just start pushing damage. So, opponent going to take 2. They get to crack Steve and get another land. Interesting that they chose black. My guess is they don't have a basic mountain to get. Okay, coming off suspend, and yes, they certainly would have gotten a mountain, I think, but if they had that to get their colors, but they play a forest here, and maybe they have red in hand. I guess we'll see what they have. Another, just a hard cast, Search for Tomorrow. I have the option of countering this, but remember that they have things like Scape Shift and Bring to Light, so kind of have to let that resolve. They play a Stomping Grounds untapped. Abrupt Decay of the Lord. Now, we cannot counter that. And with them so far ahead, honestly, I wouldn't counter it anyway, even if I could. We need to stop like a payoff spell here. So actually, you know, you can sort of get got in those situations because you can try to counter the Abrupt Decay. Like, there's nothing wrong with trying. You can cast Force, you can pitch a blue card, and you'll just lose 2 cards. So do be careful against Abrupt Decay. Another Lord is sort of okay. Nothing wrong with just pushing damage. The opponent is down to 2 cards. Possible that they just kept a hand with removal and ramp. So opponent's down to 11. And they're going for Damnation. And at this point, I felt like I had to counter that. Like, if we have no clock at all, then there's not much we can do, right? We don't have Vial. We don't have a bunch of lands where we can just slam like 2 more creatures. So I just exiled one of the Tricksters to cast Force. Opponent plays a land. They are down to 1 card. So I started getting excited here because you can see the finish line, right? You play another Lord, attack for 6. It's a 2-turn clock. Or just attack for 4. Let them try to play a Titan, tap the Titan down, then play the Lord, then attack for lethal with Island Walk. Actually like that line a little bit better. So we drew a land. It just lets us play the Relic. But I am going to just leave up Trickster since we would have lethal with the Lord next turn anyway, after casting Trickster. So Trickster, just a little bit of defense against like a Primeval Titan. All right, we play this Relic, chip away at their graveyard, and see what they've got for us. Looks like Bring to Light. All right, so opponent casts Bring to Light with 4 colors. Converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of colors of mana spent to cast this spell. Right, so they paid with 4 colors. They get a 4-drop. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lands, which means that Scape Shift would not be lethal. It would just deal 18 damage right now. There would be 6 mountains and 1 Valakut getting 6 triggers times 3 damage each. Would be 18 damage, not lethal. So the opponent here almost certainly going to get some kind of board wipe. So here's an Anger of the Gods. Technically not the end of the world. Remember, they were on 1 card a second ago. They just drew up to 2. And they cast a Bring to Light. So this could be a land in hand, could be anything, right? So I do get to flash in Trickster, play a Lord, immediately reestablish a 2-turn clock. okay, we even potentially get a redraw with Relic. Cavern, kind of bad. Something like a Force would be really awesome here. Because if I drew a Force, I'd probably just attack and pass the turn. Holding up Force and potentially holding up just like cracking Relic for a redraw. But we didn't really have options here. So just attack. It's a 2-turn clock, and I'm super close to the 5-0 here. Could taste it. So opponent has 2 cards in hand. They just play a Breeding Pool. Untapped. And I started shaking my head because they've been on 1 card for the past few turns, and they had Damnation, Bring to Light for Anger of the Gods, and now another Bring to Light. And of course, this is for the Scape Shift. With 8 lands on the board, they get 2 Valakits, 6 mountains. 6 times 2 is 12, times 3 is 36. I'm super dead. And just a really rough game to not win. I mean, 20-2, double board wipe plus the payoff, plus crazy ramp. I was pretty disappointed. So opponent just chooses a bunch of lands. I waited for them to actually hit the lands. Maybe they were out of mountains or something, but no, they had the 6 mountains to get. They had the 2 Valakits, and so all of these 12 triggers are going to kill me. So I just conceded. So that was game 2. Very exciting, but obviously disappointing. When you're that close to the 5-0, just to have it ripped out underneath you from double Bring to Light after countering a board wipe, it's just terrible. Getting hit with another board wipe. So if you don't want to see the result of the match, look away for a second. I'm going to click out of the window now. All right, I'm back. So, game 3. On the play against a very difficult matchup, a very lucky opponent. I'm going to be on the play. Feels good. Let's do it. I've got more time than the opponent. Reveal Luris. Let's go. So, very, very nice opening hand. Very, very nice. Silvergill, going to draw us cards. Even if they have remands, it's going to get on the table, going to draw us cards. Hopefully hit us a counterspell or 2. Again, got the Island Walk. Gonna make it hard for them to remove our creatures. Just a very nice opening hand. We would love maybe for Biomancer to be an Ether Vial, but cannot complain about this hand. I love seeing the Cavern. Just really nice. Make sure that they can't slow us down with these ticky-tack kind of like remands. Just hitting their land drops, getting closer to Scape Shift. So this is for all the marbles, and let's see how it goes. Now, small considerations, but you should never really just totally zone out, even in what seems like the easiest, sort of most straightforward sequencing. Some of you guys might not know this, but I sort of got into online content creation. Well, first of all, on Cockatrice, just like uploading some videos to YouTube with me playing Cockatrice. But shortly after I started uploading Cockatrice videos, I made this 6-video series called Merfolk Joe's Guide to Modern Merfolk. And it's like an hour and a half long. It talks about why the deck is good. It talks about, again, in general sense, it talks about how it wins. It talks about like the value of consistency in running like a mono blue deck, or even like just a small splash. Talks about all the creatures, talks about all the lands, talks about sequencing. It's super in-depth. Now, it's a little bit out of date at this point. I think it's like 4 years old or something. But obviously the fundamentals haven't changed in how Merfolk works, right? I mean, we gained Trickster, and I think Benthic Biomancer, and Unsettled Mariner. But playing Lords, sequencing creatures, doing tricks with Ether Vial, sequencing your lands, all still very important today, all still addressed in that series of videos. So if you guys are interested in learning more about Merfolk, search for Merfolk Joe's Guide to Modern Merfolk. And the reason I bring it up here is It would be very easy, I think, just to play Cavern of Souls, name Merfolk, and play Benthic Biomancer. But I think playing the island, playing Benthic Biomancer, the opponent might want to counter a Lord. If they bring in something like Mystical Dispute, rather than like suspending a search, they probably would suspend the search if they had it. They could play an island and then potentially try to counter our Lord. Playing Cavern would 100% incentivize them just to play the search for tomorrow and not try to hold up mana to counter the Lord, because they know that they can't counter it, right? So to the extent possible, you want to sandbag your Cavern of Souls. Like, they can't counter my Ben right now, so there's literally no reason to play Cavern of Souls right now. Do you guys think about those things when you're playing? I mean, maybe you don't play Merfolk, I don't know. All right, turns out the opponent doesn't have the search for tomorrow, so that's a very nice start for us. Seachrome Coast is a nice land, but even because there's like a tiny possibility that the opponent could Mystical Dispute our creature, I'm gonna go ahead and play the Cavern of Souls right now, like lock it in, you know? So what creature are you going to play here? And give me a second. I've been drinking way too much water. Think for a second about what creature to play here. All right, so it's sort of a trick question, I think, and I'll explain why in a second. And so it's a bit of a trick question because I don't think there's a hard and fast answer here. Silvergill is going to help us draw into counter spells faster, and counter spells are where it's at in this matchup. Like, we've obviously got creatures to do the creature thing, right? Getting out a Lord here pushes one more point of damage. I will point out that adapting Ben right now is an option, but it's obviously like the worst possible option. So in hindsight, I'm not entirely sure what I chose to do. I'm pretty sure I cast the Silvergill again because I want to just like get as close to those counter spells as quickly as possible. You might say, well, you can play the Silvergill Adept next turn and get close to the counter spell, right? But when do we play the Mariner then? Isn't it typically correct to play the Mariner first so that, you know, if the opponent has trophies, any other removal, they have to actually get taxed rather than just killing our creatures whenever they want. So for me, I think it's the Silvergill Adept again, but I guess we'll see what I did. And yeah, it looks like it was the Silvergill. And again, I don't think that there's a super correct answer here, but I'm giving my rationale, and you guys can, of course, let me know if you think it's stupid. So we're drawing through that island on top of the deck. Okay, they got a Triome. We have to check what colors it makes, because we saw that they have, like, Anger of the Gods, which requires double red, Damnation, which requires double black. So this is Zagoth, so it's Sultai colors. No red here yet. Okay, so now they have double black for something like Damnation, and here is another Sakura Tribe Elder. So we are going to have a similar number of options on our turn coming up, so you guys can, once again, think about what creature would be best to play out. Another Silvergill Adept, and sort of gave it away by playing the land too quickly. Looks like I'm going to play the Lord here. I think it is time to start pushing damage, but potentially somewhat contradictory, because having a second Silvergill Adept, you say, well, why don't you play the Silvergill right now to get closer to the counterspell? The point here is that the opponent has a blocker, and whether you guys realize it or not, the triomes are in fact islands. So the Lord does give us sort of an unblockable situation here. Play out our Ben. Now we've got a lot of creatures on the board. If we can just manage to not get Anger of the Godded or Damnation, we should be pretty set here. Like if we draw another Lord, it's gonna be 3, 3, 3, and 4. So that's 13. So lethal with Lord off the top already, like a turn 4 win. Opponent plays a forest, and they start off with what? Engineered explosives. Interesting. This is the second time we've seen this in 2 matches. Seems like engineered explosives is popular sideboard tech these days. Now, one of the things that engineered explosives actually highlights is sort of a not immediately apparent reason why Benthic Biomancer and things like Mutavault are really important in the deck, right? If we just played, in the past I have played builds of Merfolk where it's like 42 drops and like just a bunch of islands or whatever. So it makes it extremely weak to engineered explosives. In this spot, the opponent can potentially kill these 2 creatures, but I can adapt the bends and keep cracking in for 4 every turn. So anyhow, engineered explosives on the board. They do have another land. They play it untapped. Relevant that, it's hitting their life total, going down to 11. And unlike the Death Shadow opponent, the opponent did choose to pass the turn to me, which I think is typically just correct. Like, let me make a mistake and put more 2 drops on the battlefield. But it just makes sense to go to combat here. I'm not going to play anything into the engineered explosives. They're obviously just going to crack it. Opponent has not missed any land drops yet. This is our turn 4 on the play. They had turn 3, but they've already ramped with Sakura Tribe Elder. So Adept and Lord are going to bite the dust. Silvergill Adept. Opponent's going to take 2 from Benthic Biomancer. And I'm going to start by casting Silvergill. If I draw a blue card, then, of course, coast is clear to just play Mariner and pass the turn. Ether Vial, a little bit sketchy. I don't really love the idea of just passing the turn and letting them resolve like a Damnation while I could be holding up Force. I can just pass and hold up Adapt, and to me that seems like the best option here. So let's see. Opponent's turn. I got pretty excited here because it looked like they were missing a land drop, and they did in fact miss a land drop. And for a deck like this, that's just huge. It makes such a massive difference in the outcome of the game if they're actually getting ahead of their land drops with ramp or potentially missing. So they missed one. Let's go ahead and try to adapt Ben, and the Ben's just really showing their value in this particular game. Like, this Ether Vial is just dead weight here. So we go to adapt, and the opponent abrupt decays. Totally fine, right? I mean, that actually seemed to me like a bit of a desperation move. I mean, we've only got 4 damage on the board. Opponent using sort of primo removal, uncounterable removal against my 1-drop. So be it. We are looking to draw like blue cards so we can continue sort of developing our board. If you guys don't know, when you adapt Ben, the trigger that makes you actually loot is when he gets a counter. So if the opponent responds to the activation of adapt, and with removal, you'll never get that trigger to loot because it never gets the +1 counter put on him. Okay, so Island, pretty terrible, but we do have the other Benthic Biomancer on the table. So even if we looted into a Lord, not totally clear that we would have just played it. I'm going to go straight to attacks. Before damage, I'm going to try to adapt the Ben. Get in 1 more point of damage. And Harbinger is pretty sweet. Even though it's kind of next to useless in the matchup, it does let us play this Mariner, potentially tax the opponent's mana a little bit, and still hold up Force plus pitching garbage, which is pretty nice. So there I can pitch the Ether Vial, just really not doing very much of anything. Play an Island, play the Mariner, and I could have left up Hardcast Force, but I'd much rather put down another creature and have lethal on board and not really require a Lord off the top. Okay, so remember the opponent did miss a land drop last turn, so things, just as in Game 2, are looking really solid for us. Okay, opponent found a land. They go down to 3, and they start tapping. They tap their 5th land. They put Bring to Light on the stack. We've got the perfect cards in hand. Played it pretty well. Exile Harbinger and win the match. So very difficult pairing in round 5. I feel like a couple of the last times I've had opportunities to go 4-0, I've gotten paired against like Dredge and just like really impossible matchups. But in this case, got the difficult matchup, was able to fight through it. In fact, all 3 games, the deck felt really strong. And the only way that the opponent won game 2 was by having Damnation plus double Bring to Light. And I only had 1 counter spell. I countered a board wipe. They cast another board wipe. And then they had the Scape Shift. So it's like sometimes they have redundant pieces and they crush you. But if they didn't have exactly the nuts, I would have easily won. And I guess you could say I had the nuts this game. But you know, we had to do some loots to get there. It involves some trickery, some thought. So anyhow, yeah, I thought it was really interesting Magic. When you add this to the beginning of the league where I played against Jund, unfortunately the Jund pilot was very inexperienced and wasn't playing optimally. But then I played against Blue-Red Prowess twice, and that's literally the top deck in the format right now, and beat it both times. It makes a really good, strong case for playing Chalice of the Void in the sideboard because Chalice played a huge role in winning both of those matches against Blue-Red Prowess. So it was Jund, 2 Prowess decks, and then Grixis Shadow, which was sort of that epic match with like insane decisions to make. And then yeah, really crazy difficult matchup, and we managed to get there on the back of Force of Negation. So thanks very much for joining me, guys. I hope that you like this kind of analytical replay video. It's probably what I'm best at since it was all I did for maybe like 5 years with my YouTube channel. At first on Cockatrice, uploading replays, and then on Magic Online, uploading replays for a while. Again, I made that guide to how to play Modern Merfolk. So I'm all about the analysis. I love being able to do this. Hopefully show you guys some lines that you might not have otherwise thought of. And it's nice in this setting to not have the pressure of the clock or a salty opponent yelling at you, to just be able to sit back and say like, now, what is the absolute best line to take here, given all possible considerations between adapting and getting Luris and the opponent? What can they have? Bolt, push, Kolaghan's Command. What are we going to sequence? How are we going to do it? There's always a lot of decisions to make. And obviously repetition, playing, thousands and thousands of matches is going to make a lot of it automatic. But, there's definitely people who don't have thousands and thousands of matches, and so for those of you who don't, I'm here to hopefully help you out with some of the decision-making process. And that's it for today. I guess I'll go ahead and sign out. If any of you guys joining me today are not followers, please give me a follow. After Wednesday's stream, I got like one more follower and then like one more follower, and I managed to hit like exactly at 200 followers, which is a huge milestone. And it just makes me so happy, you know, that you guys keep coming back and joining me for these kinds of streams. I'm gonna keep doing my best. I'll keep playing Soul Herder on Mondays, Merfolk on Wednesdays, and you know, filling in now and then with a stream like this on a Friday, just because it was such good magic, I couldn't resist. All right, so enjoy the rest of Friday and the rest of your